Good morning. I'm Mark White. I'm the founder and the president of Idaho Estate Planning, which, as the name implies, we do estate planning, but we do a couple of other things as well. We work with a couple of governmental benefits that are designed to help people pay for long-term care. Now, there's a certain question that people always ask me, and they say, well, I've got Medicare. Doesn't Medicare cover the long-term care? And the answer is no, it doesn't. Medicare will cover your medical, so you're in the hospital. And if you've been in the hospital 3 midnights is the rule. If you've been in 3 midnights, then it kicks in and covers the medical and will cover you into rehabilitation. So they'll send you've had a fall, and they've taken care of that. Maybe you had a broken bone, and they've casted that, put that together, and then they're sending you to rehabilitation to get you back on your feet and get you moving. And Medicare then will kick in, and it will cover up to 110 days. So if you were in a situation where you needed more care than 110 days, then you're going to need to be looking at something else. Now, another thing to keep in mind, because people are often surprised, if a doctor determines while you're in rehab, if a doctor determines that you're now as good as you're going to get, you're not going to improve much, you're right where you're going to be, then Medicare also quits paying. So then we're done again. So we're not going to depend too much on Medicare if you need long-term assistance. And we're talking about in-home, bringing in personal care services, or if you need in-home care, medical care. So they call that home care or medically trained care. Or if you need to be in assisted living or memory care, and possibly skilled nursing. So any of those will trigger a need for long-term care that Medicare isn't going to pay. So 2 of the benefits are Medicaid and a VA benefit known as the pension benefit. Now, I'm not going to talk about Medicaid much today. It'll come in maybe once or twice. We're going to do another video on that, and you'll be able to see that and get a little better understanding of what Medicaid can do for you. Today, I want to give you an overview of this pension benefit. Now, the pension benefit is what's called a non-service connected benefit, meaning that you may need care, but it's from an injury or an illness or a situation that wasn't created while you were in the military. So what does that mean? Well, you were in the military during the Vietnam War. And then over time, your hearing is impaired, or over time you get old and you have issues and you need some help paying for that. Well, the non-service connected benefit is available to you. If you are injured during your service, then the service connected or the disability benefits are available. We're not talking about that today. We're talking about the pension benefit. Many people call it the aid and attendance, which is not really accurate. Aid and attendance is a level of payment connected with the pension benefit. So let's talk about that. So if you are military, then you really should listen in. If you are the widow of a veteran, you should really listen in. If you know somebody who was in the military, they ought to listen in too and understand at least at a basic level what we're talking about. So let's talk about that, how you would qualify for this. Who is this benefit for? Well, first off, it's for veterans. And not just every veteran, I'm sorry, would love it if that were the case, but it's for war period veterans. What do we mean? We mean veterans who served during a war period. So World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the war that started in 1990 in the, I don't know what do they call it, the Mideast, Kuwait. I guess it started in Kuwait, and it's just been going pretty much ever since. And so anyone who served in that, from that period, you can qualify for the benefit as long as you had 90 days active duty. They have to be consecutive days of active duty, one of which was during one of those war periods. So kind of an interesting concept, but if you served during a war period, at least one day, and then you had 90 days altogether of active duty, then you can qualify for this benefit. And that's for the veteran or the spouse of a veteran, the surviving spouse of a veteran, if the veteran served. So that's the service area. So first thing, we need a veteran who served during a war period. Second, we have to show a medical need for care. So it's not just any care. We need to have a doctor. It can, since there's been some changes, it can be a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner, examine the vet or the widow of a vet and explain what care they need. Now, there are the 6 activities of daily living. That includes eating, that includes bathing, it includes toileting, it includes transferring. So those types of issues, if we need those, as a doctor has established, then we've met the second requirement for the benefit. And I can't stress how much you really need to be very clear with your medical care provider. We found that many vets go and they're still just as independent as they were 50 years ago, 60 years ago. Oh, I can do that. When in fact they're really having a struggle. But that's what the doctor helps us to do, is establish that need. So if we have a vet has a medical need, then third, we have to meet some financial requirements. So what are we talking about there? Well, there's 2 parts of the financial requirement. The first one is the amount of assets that you have. The VA calls this net worth. Now, the net worth got changed. There's some rules, and these got changed just about a year and a half ago. So now a vet can have no more than just under $130,000 worth of assets. Okay, so you're sitting there going, well, listen, we have a house and it's way more than $130,000. The house doesn't count. That's an excluded asset, right? So they don't look at your house regardless of the equity that you have in that home. So the house doesn't count. Car doesn't count. There's a few other things that don't count against that $130,000. If you have more than $130,000, there are some things that you can do to reposition those assets and get qualified. That's a question where you call us and then we visit, because you have to be careful how you do it. The second part of the financial requirement is your income. Now, this one's kind of interesting. And so what they do is they look at the maximum benefit that you would qualify for. So every year they print out or they post for us a listing of what you would qualify for if you're a single vet or you're a vet with a dependent, if you're the widow of a vet. So there is a little spreadsheet that we would go through to help you understand what your income could be. So let's talk about that. So let's take a single or a married vet, a vet with one dependent. He could qualify for as much as $2,266 a month. Okay, it's a rather random number. It got established years ago and it automatically updates. But let's use that number for right now. $2,266 a month. So what the VA does, here's how the formula works. We look at the $2,266. we weigh your income against that. So let's say that you're getting $2,000 a month from Social Security, and that's your only income. Well, then we would subtract your income from that benefit. So if we do that, we end up with $266. That's the difference between the two. So you could qualify for as much as $266 per month. That's not the end of this, though. We can, and so that's the issue that we have, is the difference between the two. But we're not finished. There is a formula that we use. It's called income for VA purposes. And that allows us to go back into your income. Let's say that your income is $2,000 a month. And let's say that you're getting $1,500 a month of in-home care. Well, from your $2,000 a month income, we can subtract the $1,500. Well, so now we have, for VA purposes, our income is $500. Well, now we go back to that maximum benefit, which is $2,266. You subtract the $500, and now the benefit that you would receive on a monthly basis is $1,766. So that's how this works. So we could subtract out the care. So if you're at home receiving care and the doctor tells us you need the care, we subtract it out. If you are in assisted living, and generally if you are in assisted living, the doctor has already signed off and said you need to be in assisted living, then we subtract the entire amount of the assisted living. So let's say that it was costing us $3,000 a month to be in assisted living. Well, we subtract the $3,000 out of our income, which is $2,000, and you don't go negative. You just get zero at that point. And then you subtract zero from the maximum benefit amount, which is $2,266, and zero from $2,266 is, well, it's $2,266. So you can see how we work through this. So that's kind of a down and dirty on how to qualify, or the eligibility requirements for the Veterans Pension Benefit is the actual name. We tend to call it aid in attendance, and if you talk to people, they'll ask you about aid in attendance. That's how you qualify. So again, the three requirements is you need a vet with wartime service, 90 days of active duty, one of which was during a war period. Number two, they have to have a doctor sign off on a medical need. They need care, and the doctors establish this, or a competent medical provider. And three, then we have to meet the financial requirements, both the net worth. We have to have less than $139,000 of countable assets, and then our income as adjusted. The income for VA purposes has to be less than the benefit that we would receive. So thank you for joining in. Join us. We're going to talk a little bit more about the VA benefit. We're going to drill in a little bit and get you up to speed on what you need to know, one, to qualify, and then we'll talk about how to get the benefit.